Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah! I said give me a hell yeah!
Then let's get this show started right now.
What is going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael5Ritter and on Instagram at MichaelRitter5. Also the host of the Football Function Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. We're going to be talking about the SmackDown that aired on May 28th, 2021. Now, normally, as you guys know, I do these podcasts, these recordings after SmackDown immediately following. At least last week, it was the most convenient it's ever been. There really wasn't any inconveniences that stopped me from recording on Friday night this week. I just kind of wanted to try it out a little bit differently, for just a little bit behind the curtain here in my personal life. For the past 7 weeks, literally 7 weeks straight, I have worked Monday through Saturday in my real job. So it's kind of like, and I know that's not like anything too crazy. I mean, I know there's people out there who work way more than I do, but basically, just like for the past 7 weeks, I've only had 1 day off a week, and that does actually like take a toll on me. Like I work outside, so it being in Texas here when the heat's actually starting to pick up, and just my job in particular, May through the 4th of July is kind of like the peak season. It's the busiest time of the year, so it's kind of starting to slow down now. Like this week that we just worked was our very first week where we're going back to normal, pretty much just 5 days a week. So I shouldn't have really any more issues doing this. And like I said, last night really wasn't an issue. I knew I had today off, which is very rare. I haven't had a Saturday off since March. So I was like, okay, hell yeah. Well, I get to wake up. I'll watch SmackDown tonight, which I watched it on Friday night last night, took some notes. And I said, all right, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to record just to try to see if that is, because I'm trying to find the format that sticks. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the tried and true, record on Friday night. But I just kind of want to see, I want to provide the best show possible. And if me recording those shows extremely late is, a detriment to the show or just it hurts it by any means. I'm not saying that it does. I'm just saying that hypothetically, if that is something that I feel like the show has more quality if I record in the morning, then that's what I'll do. But I mean, we're going to keep trying it out. We're going to keep doing Friday nights, maybe do this every now and then. We'll see, though. I do want it to be consistent. I don't want, 1 week it's going to come Friday night, 1 week it's going to come Saturday morning. I know how it is. I don't want to do that to Matt. I take pride in not only being accountable, but being consistent. So I want to make sure that I find a formula that works, and I will continue doing that. But before we get in to the SmackDown review that we're going to be covering here, there is a little bit of breaking news. Hope you guys enjoy my little breaking news sounding effect there. But anyways, the news itself, very big news for me personally. And that is, I already broke this news on Twitter a little bit yesterday by telling Matt and DJ Kuzmo. But whenever WWE goes back on the road for the very first time in God knows how long, I mean, over a year, it's been way too long, you could say that. I mean, I count WrestleMania obviously as having fans there. They were inside of a different arena. But it's different. They were in Tampa Bay. There were still all those protocols. It was the first one. We really weren't sure what to expect. From my understanding, this 25-city tour is, the chains are off. The what am I trying to say? I don't know. I guess they took the training wheels off, I guess is what I'm looking for here. So that it's going back to normal without, saying anything too long-winded. I'm excited to be in the crowd, and I will be there in Houston, Texas, Toyota Center, July 16th for that episode of SmackDown. I will be there to provide some on-site coverage. I want to, DJ Kuzmo suggested maybe getting some audio, from the actual crowd, maybe some pops. I don't know who's going to be there. I mean, I've heard some names rumored. I know there's probably going to be some big names. I mean, they're going back on the road. It's going to be in TV. And just a little side note here, I've never been to one of these. Like, I've been to, dozens and dozens of live events and house shows. I've been to that one Royal Rumble. The only actual TV event that I've ever been to in the WWE was The Royal Rumble in 2017, obviously Randy Orton won. I've mentioned that several times in San Antonio. But now I finally get to go to SmackDown. I've always wanted to go to a Raw. I've always wanted to go to SmackDown. I've always wanted to go to WrestleMania. The Royal Rumble was definitely a bucket list thing, but my seats were so high that I almost don't count it. My seats here at SmackDown are great. On the floor, behind the commentary table, I'm going to try my best. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm definitely going to try before the show starts to go up there, maybe get a picture with Pat McAfee and Michael Cole, just see what I can do. I'm definitely going to try to hold up a sign as well to shout out the WWE podcast. So everybody, just in case, there's, for whatever, if luck's on my side and the cameras do so happen to find me, give the show a shout out here. Maybe get some more followers, some more listeners. That's what we're all trying to do here. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And also, after that show immediately stops, I'm going back to my hotel room. And me and Matt are going to do a post-show review. So he will be joining me, or I'll be joining him, whatever way you want to look at it, for the SmackDown review that July 16th, whenever WWE finally goes back in front of fans. And on the road, that's the biggest thing. They're not going to be in Florida. This is going to be the first time they're in another state in, I don't know, since March. That's wild to think about. The WWE is finally about to start going back to normal. There's finally a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a specific date for us to target and look at. So that's exciting. I'm looking forward to doing all that. And being there in the crowd. Like I said, I've never been to a TV show, like a live event that close, where I'm going to be on the floor. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. Hopefully some big names come back. I'd be happy with like a John Cena appearance. That'd be badass. I've already seen Edge and Sasha Banks are featured on that poster for that specific episode. If The Rock showed up, that would be just insane. I would love to see that. But nonetheless, just wanted to break that news with you guys. If you didn't see it on Twitter, I will be at SmackDown July 16th for the very first show, back in front of fans and on the road. But I guess with that news out of the way, we can finally jump in here to the SmackDown review and get it started. And this one started, I will just say here, one thing I noticed just starting this episode and kind of going through the first few segments and just looking with how Raw ended. Because remember, Raw ended with a a women's tag team match between, who was it? Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax versus Natty and Tamina. And then, the whole Reginald stuff got involved. You guys all know what happened there. But basically, if you count that, so Raw going off the air featuring some tag team wrestling, and then you include SmackDown, the way it started, well, it started off with Roman Reigns in the back with Jimmy Uso and Jay Uso. So, that's tag team related, because he was literally questioning them about their decision, or Jimmy's decision, I guess, to, be more specific, about going through with their tag team plans and, try to actually pursue those tag team championships. For whatever reason, Roman isn't happy with that. But before we get there, I just want to continue on here by saying that's not where it stopped with the tag team stuff. So literally, Raw went off the air with featuring tag team wrestling. SmackDown started. Jimmy and Jay Uso in the back cutting that promo. Then we get a tag team match, the Street Profits versus Jimmy and Jay Uso to start the show. And then immediately following that, we get another women's tag team match with Natty and Tamina versus the Riot Squad. And then some backstage promos featuring tag team wrestlers and just, furthering tag team storylines. So that kind of jumped out to me. They literally went, if you're talking about strictly WWE TV, not counting NXT, just the main roster, they probably spent well over an hour straight, just real time. If you're talking about Raw going off there and SmackDown starting the show, specifically tag team wrestling. And that's not even all. The first hour of SmackDown was loaded, but there's even more tag team stuff. And you guys know I love tag team wrestling. I hate that it's almost like a dinosaur. It's a forgotten art. It's prehistoric almost, and not nearly to that extent, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. It's definitely, the arrow is going in the wrong direction when you're talking about tag team wrestling. But I was encouraged to see how it was featured on tonight's show and just think, man, they dedicated 60% of the show to tag team action. So it's good to see. I don't know who's responsible for that. I can't see Vince McMahon just, personally just saying, you know what, that sounds like a damn good idea. Let's just get tag team wrestling all over the show. Men's division, women's division. Let's get some backstage promos going on. I just don't see Vince McMahon really, being completely on board with that, but it happened. So, he must have signed off on it. So regardless, I am pleased to see that happen, but I kind of just wanted to throw that out there to set the tone for the type of episode this was. A lot of tag team stuff, a lot of backstage interview type things as well. So it's just a decent episode of SmackDown. So we can go ahead and start it off here, and I will start with, like I said, Roman Reigns and Jay Uso and Jimmy Uso in the back. Jimmy is basically, being excited, talking about how they're going to get some championship gold around their waist as well to match Roman Reigns to make the bloodline just stronger as a whole. It just makes perfect sense. More belts equals a lot better. Just ask Evolution, just ask Undisputed Era. Anytime you have a faction with all of the gold, there's just a respect factor that comes in that doesn't happen if like Roman Reigns is the champion and Jimmy and Jay have, they're just a dominant team beside him, kind of sticking up for him, making sure he wins all of his matches. Whenever every member of the group has gold, it's without a doubt more legitimate. I mean, they just have that feel like, ooh, these guys might legitimately be unstoppable here. And it just kind of provides that feeling. But Roman Reigns, nonetheless, isn't happy. You can tell he's bothered. He's uneasy by it. And Jay Uso is almost even more bothered. I mean, you could just tell it's almost like he's being forced to do this. He doesn't want to do it at all. And they continue to tease that throughout the show several times. But like I said, we get after this little backstage segment to start the show, we get the Street Profits versus Jimmy and Jay Uso. And they both kind of trade blows on the mic, talking about how, yeah, you guys are the 6-time champs, but the time has passed. The Street Profits are saying this. You guys are 6-time tag team champions. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. You guys are 6-time tag team champions, but your time has passed. We're not a stepping stone team that you guys are going to step on to get to the tag team championships so you can get your 7th reign. We're in the way now. We're a team that is going to try to go out those belts ourselves, and they said themselves, we run this division now. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but nonetheless, I like it. I like that they're actually going at it and they're trying to make the tag team division feel important. Following that match, we do get the Usos versus the Street Profits. And we didn't know it at the time, but this was basically a number 1 contenders match because of something that happens a little bit later in the show. But nonetheless, we get this match. It's pretty lengthy. I mean, not, super short, not, a 30-minute match like we've seen in recent weeks that take up a huge chunk of the show. But nonetheless, it was a good little time filler match. And it ended up ending, surprisingly, with Jimmy Uso hitting a super kick. But before that happened, I will say, you guys know I like to point these moments out during the match. You know how wrestlers will do like those jumps over the top ropes? Normally they're like a bunch of other wrestlers standing outside the ring looking like idiots, just, grouped up together so they can jump over the ropes and take them all out. Well, this time Montez Ford jumped like directly over the turnbuckles and the corner post. And he did basically that same thing, did a front flip and almost overshot it a little bit and hit the barricade. But he didn't. It was just one of those things like, man, he was throwing himself around on that one. But like I said, the Usos pick up the win here. And they move one step closer. Like I said, this match ended up basically being a number 1 contenders match because later on in the show, the Usos, and not too later, I mean, like I said, this is part of that like first hour where there was a lot of tag team stuff going on even backstage. So the Usos go up to Adam Pearce, and they say, because there is a main event match tonight for the tag team championships. So yeah, that's crazy. In the same week, another main event tag team match. But speaking of that match, the Usos say, in the winner of that match, we want them next week for the tag team championship right here on SmackDown. And Adam Pearce, there must be something in his contract where he can only approve certain championship matches or only approve a certain amount a week because, I mean, you guys all know this. There's times where he says, look, I can't do that. I don't have that kind of power. And then today he's like, oh yeah, right away I could do that. I can make that happen. You got it. Next week, tag team championship match, the Usos versus the Mysterios. So, and this is actually my first time saying that. Because I knew that was going to happen, that matchup next week, but it's actually my first time to actually think about, this is literally 2 families going at it. I mean, 2 pretty historic wrestling families, although, Rey Mysterio is basically, in a whole nother era, obviously. He's not from the same era that the Usos and even his son. I mean, Rey Mysterio is clearly outmatched, but it is crazy. I forgot who it was. Was it the Botch guy that said that Rey Mysterio might be the most consistent wrestler in WWE history? I never thought about it like that, but he's exactly right. Wrestlers take step backs, no matter what. They can have a 20 to 25 year career, and we've seen it happen before several times. But you cannot say that. That wrestler definitely lost a step. With Rey Mysterio, that is. With other wrestlers, I mean, look at The Undertaker, for God's sake. Chris Jericho, even now. Wrestlers just, they age. I mean, and they don't age like wine, But Rey Mysterio is just, he's an exception to that. For whatever reason, and his style is one that you think would limit him to have a long career. He's always been high-flying. I mean, you go back and look at some of the Ruthless Aggression stuff whenever he was on SmackDown. Oh my gosh, just in particular, before I go too off topic, I don't know who all remembers this, but whenever, I think he was fighting the Big Show at the time, and the Big Show tied him up to like a stretcher, and he put Rey Mysterio while he was on the stretcher tied up, and he just kind of smacked him up against the ring post. Y'all remember that? And then he just like dropped him, and Rey Mysterio literally he was tied up, so he couldn't protect himself. He couldn't brace the fall at all. Literally lands on his front side, just laying flat out straight. So yeah, he hits his face, hits his stomach, hits his chest. I mean, that was brutal. That was a brutal little segment there back in the day, a long time ago on SmackDown. But basically, what I'm trying to say is Rey Mysterio he has taken a beating over his career. Not just WWE. He's gone all over the world, and this dude has really... He's put his body on the line. I can only imagine the type of injuries, the list of injuries that he's dealt with over his career. But for him to still be going, and at this rate, basically being obviously the better member in his tag team. I mean, he's training his son. His son's still a lot new, so that's kind of an unfair comparison. But nonetheless, it's still true. Rey Mysterio, despite being extremely old, is, he has the most juice in this entire, not this entire match that we're going to see with the Usos. Because I do feel like Jimmy and Jay both, they still got a lot left. But Rey Mysterio, he just has something, man, and I'll give it to him. I remember back in WCW seeing Rey Mysterio without a mask, like whenever he was with that group. I can't remember for the life of me what that group was called, but it had Conan in there, Billy Kidman. There was a lot of pretty big time wrestlers as far as WCW goes, obviously. But like I said, the Usos win their respective match. Now they get their number one contenders match next week on SmackDown against the Mysterios. So that'll be an interesting one to see. Up next here, we get another tag team match. This one in the women's division, Riot Squad versus Natty and Tamina. And this one isn't nearly, like I said, the match before that wasn't very long, but this one's even faster. I was happy to see the Riot Squad featured as a tag team to get a match against the champions. And they did decent, I will say. They didn't get just completely pushed around. There were a couple near falls there where you thought maybe they were going to, get the upper hand. But, nonetheless, Tamina she's being booked right now as she's head and shoulders over people. Despite that not being the case in her in-ring work, she's looked as she's going to be the one who comes through and saves the day. They're not going to lose as long as Tamina is there and breathing, pretty much. She's going to have to get taken out before the match, during the match by somebody who's not involved. Something, that's bending the rules, personally, is what I feel like is going to have to happen for them to lose those belts, just because of how Tamina is being booked and featured. She's looking like she is very strong, and I'll give it to her. I'm not a big fan of Tamina in the work, but she's changed her hair up. She's giving effort. She's trying. She's showing up every week, and she's embracing this role and being pushed like that. So I respect that. I really do. So I'm excited to see how they do keep going with this, just in terms of, Tamina always being the one to save the day. Are they always going to let her kind of be that role in this tag team, or are they going to let them, maybe switch it up a little bit, let Natty, show, she brings a little bit too, because me personally, I'm way higher on Natty than I am on Tamina, so I just want to see her get a little bit of shine in this as well. But like I said, Tamina does come through here, and the champions retain after Tamina hits a Superfly splash off of the top rope. And after this match is actually whenever the Usos make their request for the championships next week against the Mysterios. But I just went ahead and talked about it before that, just because it kind of tied in with that. I just wanted to, include that in all of this tag team stuff that happened before we get into some singles action, which is what happens next. Carmella versus Bianca Belaire. And Bayley actually sneaks up through the crowd in the barricade. She kind of joins Michael Cole and Pat. And I like whenever they do that. It literally felt unexpected. Pat had that surprised look on his face. And she's like, give me a chair. There's not a chair out here already waiting. I like whenever they do it like that. Or at least kind of let you know, before a segment, if she would have come out on a ding-dong hello backstage thing and said, yeah, and I'm going to be on commentary for Bianca's match. They didn't let us know. We thought it was just going to be a one-on-one match between Bianca and Carmella. And then Bayley walks up, demands that they pull a chair out. And she joins them. And she continues her thing where she's just laughing at Bianca. It literally, and it could have just been because I, just ate dinner or something like that. My stomach was hurting, but Bayley was laughing so hard, just pointing and laughing, standing on the announce table at Bianca after the match, because Bianca does win. She beats Carmella with a kiss of death at the very end of the match. And Carmella has a couple, she tries to do the Code of Silence. I believe that's what her move is called, and then Bianca breaks out of it, and then Carmella tries to hit an X Factor. Bianca counters that. That's when she hits the kiss of death and eventually wins the match. But like I said, when Bayley was pointing, laughing, just hysterically, it almost made my stomach hurt, just because I was like, dude, take a breath. You have been laughing that hard for 10 straight seconds. I don't know. It could be one of those things that kind of like Paul Heyman's stare. I know DJ Kuzma sent me a little a little clip of him doing that. He knows that gets under my skin, but I think that that's kind of what Bayley's laugh is starting to do. It's starting to kind of fall in that same ballpark because she's just doing it over and over again. Like, at what point, like, what are you laughing at? Like, she's literally the champion. She beats you. You could say she cheated all she wants, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, and just on that really quick, I wouldn't be surprised if Bayley gets this championship back at Hell in a Cell. Just real quick, I want to kind of get that out there right now. I don't want to speak it into existence, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I would not be surprised if Bayley regains her SmackDown Women's Championship from Bianca Belair. It's just a hunch. I don't have, any concrete evidence or any, like, theory that goes behind it. It's just what I feel. I feel like that could be what happens with this whole Bianca thing. They're not going to have every champion keep their belt till SummerSlam. I mean, I'm sure they would like to, but I do think there's going to be at least one casualty who has to drop their belt just to kind of switch it up a little bit. And just real quick, I do think that maybe that episode of SmackDown that I'll be at when they're back on the road, man, I cannot wait to see if there's like some title changes or just something big. You know that they're going to try to bring their A game, and I'm excited for that. But continuing on here in the show, we get Seth Rollins. He comes out as always dressed to kill. I mean, Seth Rollins' suit game is on point, and that's just his character now. I feel like. I mean, and he did refer to himself as the Messiah in this segment, so I was kind of curious, and I did notice Seth Rollins obviously has a new song, but the thing is it's not like night and day from his first song, Like, he went from his original song, which I loved, all those instruments in that song. In my top 5 songs, that one was definitely in there, I remember that, but his Messiah song really wasn't a fan of. I mean, I know some people like that, but like I said, it's all subjective when it comes to music. Not for me. I'm not for that classical type stuff. I feel like it was too similar to Bayley's music. Like, their theme songs were too similar, and I really didn't know who was coming out whenever it would initially hit. But Seth Rollins' song now, it's a little different. I mean, I still personally feel like his very first song, just with that drum solo, you cannot beat that with Seth Rollins. So, I mean, I like that they're kind of keeping it similar, but nonetheless, Seth Rollins does have an official new song, so just wanted to throw that out there. And I feel like this isn't the first week that he came out with this song, but I don't know. I must have just forgot to mention it on previous episodes, but there you go. Seth Rollins does have a new song. So he comes out here, obviously, to address Cesaro and what happened last week. But Seth claims that he blacked out. He didn't really know what was happening, but he blamed us for that outburst. He blamed us and Cesaro for causing that to happen. For whatever reason, I guess that's our fault. I don't really understand how, but he calls us guilty. And then Seth adds that Cesaro shouldn't have gotten in his way in the first place. That Cesaro was crazy for thinking that he can get in. This is when he referred to himself. He thinks that he can get in the Messiah's way and there not be any repercussions. And that just wasn't going to happen. At least not with Seth. But before he leaves, like I said, he calls us guilty as the fans. And then he sings himself happy birthday. And it really was his birthday. Seth turned 35 yesterday. So whenever SmackDown actually went on the air. So, I mean, he just got to come out dressed in a sharp suit, cut a promo. A pretty easy night's work for Seth on his birthday. And you can always appreciate that. You always hate when your birthday falls on like a Wednesday or Thursday and you have to go to work. That sucks. But nonetheless, I don't know if I've said that a lot this episode, but Seth Rollins, he addresses Cesaro, and this isn't over. They're going to probably have another feud or another match to continue this feud at Hell in a Cell. And is it going to be inside of a Hell in a Cell? Because Seth Rollins says that he hopes that Cesaro never can step inside of a ring again. Obviously, it's not going to happen. He didn't do anything, it wasn't a buried alive match. He didn't do anything that like a concerto shot to his head or anything like that. Like, it wasn't anything that's going to keep Cesaro sidelined for the long term. But, I mean, like Matt said, I think it might have been the mailbag. I don't know if it was the weekend review or the mailbag episode. But earlier this week, Matt said that he would rather, if SmackDown is going to get one cell match at the pay-per-view, he would rather it be Cesaro and Seth instead of Jimmy and Roman. And that makes complete sense. I mean, obviously, Jimmy and Roman should not even think about going inside of the Hell in a Cell. But while Cesaro clearly has, a huge grudge, passionate hatred for Seth Rollins for the attacks that he's done. I mean, understandably so. So this is one that, and Cesaro wasn't here on the show, obviously he's hurt, but this is one of the programs that you can see going inside the cell and it making sense. So, I mean, I don't know. WWE likes to just take advantage of the calendar year that the Hell in a Cell comes up, so they're gonna throw any program that's going on inside of that cell. Well, luckily for them, they have one. They have one right at their disposal that they could do, and they even might have one on Raw. I know that people are tired of seeing Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley go at it for that WWE Championship. Mainly Drew McIntyre. They're tired of seeing him in the picture, but still, that's a program that I feel like is worthy of, all right, you want to end it? Let's end it right now. Hell in a Cell. If Drew loses, he's done. He cannot challenge for that WWE Championship again. And I'm not trying to, fantasy book here. I'm just basically saying, like, there is ways to do this and make the Cell feel like it's worthy of those programs. I feel like you have one on each show that you can do. I don't know if they're going to, but like I said, Seth and Cesaro, they're going to fight again at Hell in a Cell, most likely. And if it's inside the Cell, I feel like that'll be beneficial. I feel like that's the match on SmackDown that is most worthy of being in the Cell. So hopefully they'll do that. But moving on here, we get another match, a singles match. This one's for the Intercontinental Championship. Kevin Owens versus Apollo Crews. And this match really wasn't the longest of the night by any means. It was actually pretty fast. It didn't end, with a normal finish, obviously, and we'll get to exactly how it happens. But, in this match, Kevin Owens comes out pretty fast. He tries to get the upper hand early. But, like I said, it ended pretty quickly, and the reason why it did that is because Commander Aziz, as Kevin Owens, had the upper hand, and he looked like maybe he was going to get a successful pinfall against Apollo Crews. Commander Aziz from the outside of the ring, he doesn't, pull Kevin Owens off of him or anything like that. He literally hits the Nigerian nail through the ropes while standing on the outside of the ring. I will say that was pretty cool. Just impressive. I like to see them do things that are different, and that's kind of what he did. It wasn't just your typical interference. He just, he's about to get the pinfall, it was like a three-point shot, from long range, just bam, put that thumb right in there, broke it up, and Kevin Owens struggled to breathe for a very long time. But they see him backstage. There's another backstage segment here a little bit later where Kevin Owens is being checked on by the training staff, and Adam Pearce walks up, and Kevin Owens demands that he gets a rematch next week with Apollo Crews for that Intercontinental Championship. And Adam Pearce, this is another one of those segments where I guess this is just one of the match, or it's just a night where Adam Pearce has the green light to do whatever he wants. He can approve or cancel, whatever, edit any type of match that he wants, because he does. Next week, we have Intercontinental Championship match, Apollo Crews versus Kevin Owens, and Aziz is banned from ringside. Now, that's a nice twist right there, because he's not like one of the because you guys know, like, whenever somebody interferes from outside of the ring, they can do it in different ways. There's people who literally, like Ric Flair used to do all those years, even if his opponent was winning, or the dude that he was managing, the guy whose corner he was in, even if he was winning, he would still do some heels tactics, just kind of clip their legs when they're running the ropes, do things like that. There are certain type of managers or just outside people that are outside the ring who will interfere no matter what. Aziz really doesn't get involved unless he has to, unless Apollo Crews is literally about to lose his championship. So I've noticed that, because there is a difference. People do it, all the time. So it's kind of one of those things that I paid attention to, and I'm excited to see kind of how Apollo Crews handles this next week, not having Aziz in his corner. Because he's done pissed off Kevin Owens to the point where, Kevin Owens is going to come out even faster than he did this week. He's going to be, real fast, real physical, trying to put Apollo Crews away early. And I don't know. Apollo Crews banned, or Commander Aziz banned from ringside. Is he still going to somehow make an appearance? Is Apollo Crews going to, break out a weapon of some sort to try to get this win? I don't see him picking up a clean win over Kevin Owens. If that happened, I feel like that would suck for Kevin. But I don't know. You want to make your champion look strong. This is your chance. Let him take over and dominate this match without Commander Aziz. And that'll just make that faction look even more dominant. That, all right, yeah, he has this giant guy who's not going to let him lose. But Apollo Crews also has that switch that he can flip, turn on at any minute, and go and put anybody away. And that's kind of what I want to see. Not necessarily that specific one, or not that specific ending, but, it's an avenue they can take, I personally think that Apollo Crews is going to do something sneaky. He might pull out some brass knuckles, something from his gear, and steal this win. I don't think that it's going to be a title change hands next week, even though we do already have 2 announced championship matches on SmackDown. The tag team championships with the Usos and Mysterios, and now we get Apollo Crews and Kevin Owens. So, a little bit of rematch action, but also some championship action. So, next week on SmackDown, you guys already know what to expect. We're going to get 2 championship matches, at least. I don't expect there to be any more added or anything like that. It's not a pay-per-view. If you have more than 2 championship matches on a SmackDown, then what the hell are you doing? But let's see here. Continuing on in the show, we get a little bit of a backstage segment, another one. This one is from Roman Reigns and Jay Uso. And as you guys already know, Jimmy and Jay got their match approved next week. So they do have an official tag team championship match, like I just said. But Roman Reigns is shown visibly upset backstage now with Jay for basically going through with this whole tag team plan with Jimmy. And Roman is kind of, this is where you're kind of starting to see things aren't going Roman Reigns' way. And that hasn't happened yet since he's been this heel version of him. Whatever he wants, he gets, and he usually doesn't give anybody the opportunity to do anything else. But that's not how it's going right here. You can tell he doesn't like this. But he's, he just kind of has to watch. He has to see. He might be testing Jay to see what he does. And once Jey Uso does commit to the tag team, it's not likely, but you could see Roman Reigns going out there and putting both of them down. Just kind of saying, you guys had a choice, and you guys made it, so now I have a choice, and you guys are not only just kicked out of the family, but I'm going to beat the hell out of you. And I think that's too soon to do something like that. But it makes your mind wonder. That's where my mind went. Like, what the hell? Like, Roman Reigns isn't getting his way this week, and that's something that normally always happens. Roman Reigns is always the guy who, no matter what it is that he wants, he's going to get it. So, let's see here. Roman Reigns says, basically, his whole point in, trying to convince Jey Uso not to go through with this is basically saying, right now, with me, since your brother's been gone, you've turned into main event Jey Uso. That's who you are. You've taken your game to a whole nother level, and it's respectable. And Roman just says he would hate to see Jey Uso get relegated back to, being constantly asked, which one are you again? And I don't think that's going to happen. They actually look different now. Back then when they had, the only thing that was different about them was one of them had their face paint on the right and the other one had their face paint on the left. And I told myself a long time ago that Jimmy had the face paint with the right, or he had his face paint on the right side. So right then I knew. That's kind of how I taught myself and, got myself to remember who they were back when I first started watching wrestling again and they were actually featured. But so that does happen. People do think, which one are you? I know that not everybody can just distinguish who is who right away, although you should by now. Because, like I said, they look, a lot different. You can kind of tell, especially when they start talking on the mic. Jimmy Uso is so much more polished than Jay. It's just crazy to see. But that's pretty much all it is Jey Uso says, yeah, I'm tagging with Jay, but I'm still with you. So, he's torn. I'm really anticipating to see what they do with Jey Uso, exactly what happens here, whose side he's going to take. Because I don't think it's just going to be all hunky-dory like, oh, well, we're the bloodline now. Like, we're a faction. Everything's all sunshine and rainbows. Like, no, I think that not everybody's going to be happy here with how this ends. I think that whether it's Roman Reigns, whether it's Jimmy Uso, whether Jay, him being the one that's kind of torn in between, this is going to end ugly, in my opinion. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I'm excited to see how it ends. But continuing on here, our last singles match of the night, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Chad Gable. And Rick Boogs is back again to play Shinsuke's intro. I don't know, I liked it. Like I said, it's hard as hell to play that on electric guitar, so I couldn't do it. But I do feel like he did a little bit better last week. I feel like the timing was a little bit off this week. But like I said, it's extremely hard to do, especially whenever his song is going on in the background. It's almost like, why the hell are you playing a song if they're playing it anyway? It's kind of weird, but they've done that before. They used to have that person playing the violin who would come out to play Shinsuke's song. So it's just a badass song. I don't blame anybody for wanting to play that. If you can play that on the guitar, why not do it? It's like having a six pack. Like if you have abs, you're gonna walk around with your shirt off and show it off. Like if you can play the guitar, I'm going to play the guitar any chance I get. You better believe that. But in terms of this match, let's see here. Before it started, Otis actually attacked Shinsuke Nakamura before the match started. So I thought that was kind of weird. But despite getting attacked by Otis, Shinsuke Nakamura makes he makes light work with Chad Gable. He beats him pretty early and pretty decisively. And Baron Corbin actually comes out to try to get his crown back. And while he's out there, that's whenever Shinsuke Nakamura defeats Chad Gable. And then Baron Corbin goes up to the top of the ramp and he starts to kind of, taunt Shinsuke for getting his crown back. But out of nowhere, he's attacked from behind by Rick Boogs. And like I said, I have no idea who this Rick Boogs dude is. I've never seen him before, so it's kind of like, is he a wrestler? I don't know. I literally do not know if this guy's a wrestler, if he's just like an Elias who's kind of a wrestler, but kind of like a performer. I don't really know what... I don't. So I'm not going to sit here and just say I have, a full analysis on who this guy is, how they're going to feature him, this and that. But, I'm taking it week by week, just like you guys. I'm trying to see what they're going to do with him. Obviously got a little bit more action this week. He's clearly behind Shinsuke. He's not just, playing his song every week. He literally got physically involved. So, I don't know. That definitely caught me off guard. So, but nonetheless, Shinsuke gets his crown back. Or he gets Corbin's crown back. And that just kind of tells me, if you're literally starting to get to the point where you're just having people steal his crown, just for fun, what the hell, dude? It's time to get rid of the damn crown. I mean, it is. If this is your way of kind of trying to, just make it a joke, like what was the point in doing it? I thought the point in doing it was to try to make Corbin more legitimate, having him win the King of the Ring, be that heel who goes around bragging about it. Well, that's like 2 years ago, all right? It's been long enough. And now, clearly, they don't know what to do with this crown. I think that there's better things you can do with Baron Corbin. I mean, it's not that hard. So, yeah, my personal opinion, I don't think that they should bring back the King of the Ring, just, to close on that. I don't think, it used to be something that they used to, boost superstars' career. I mean, look at what happened with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Booker T actually had a pretty good run being King Booker, but, you're not gonna catch lightning in the bottle again. I think that time might be past. If you're not gonna know how to book the person who wins King of the Ring, then just don't do it. We're not sitting here clamoring for it or anything like that. So, moving on here to the main event, and like I said, we get another main event tag team match, or at least it was supposed to be a tag team match. It was supposed to be Mysterios versus the Dirty Dogs for the tag team championships. But similar to Backlash, whenever Dominic got attacked backstage and Rey Mysterio had to basically carry the match, go 1-on-2 for, to try to get those tag team championships, well, like the inverse of that happened this week because Rey Mysterio is the one who got attacked backstage by the Dirty Dogs. And Dominic had to carry this match for like a majority of it. And I don't know. The match itself, I guess, they were clearly trying to make Dominic look strong, so I'll give them that. Like, they want to try to put the kid over with us and show us that he can go. He can go for, a 20-minute match by himself. He can carry it, and that's just, it's a shout-out to his, ability to carry a match. Dominic's, that is. So, it's a good thing to see him be able to do this, just to see him capable of doing that. I'm a fan of it, but I just personally, let's see a tag team match. Come on, you don't have to do this. We don't need to see Dominic try his hardest to go 2-on-1, or even Rey Mysterio for that matter. Like, you can show us Dominic is strong in a tag team match. Have him carry the match with his tag team partner over there. Or just continue to go in there and make saves. Like when his dad's about to get pinned, don't just assume he's going to kick out. Go in there and break up the pinfall. Do things like that and show that not only he's good inside the ring, but he has mental awareness where he can actually, pick up on things that are going on inside the match. And I feel like he's kind of getting better at that, but I just wasn't really a fan of the way this ended. The people who are really, hurting from this is Ziggler and Rude. Just because they're looking like they can, they can't even beat somebody 2-on-1. They've had 2 opportunities, and one of them was against like a 20-year-old kid, it seems like. And I know he's a little bit older than that, but, nonetheless, he's not nearly as experienced, nearly as polished, nearly as good as the other 2. But for whatever reason, he's kicking their ass on a weekly basis. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those things that doesn't really make sense. And Rey Mysterio came out towards the end because Dominic kicked out because he almost hit a 619 in this match. And Ziggler moved out of the way, and then he hits a zigzag. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is when the Mysterios are going to lose and get those tag team championships back because the championships were on the line here. But no, Dominic kicks out, as he did several times during the match. And then Rey Mysterio comes out. And somehow, because he doesn't come out immediately after that. The match kind of goes on for a little bit, and then it's Rude and Dominic inside of the ring as the legal men. Whenever Rey Mysterio's music hits and he comes out, and then immediately Dominic rolls up Rude and gets to win. And this is just like, I don't know. Like I said, I've complimented some of the ways that they've done roll ups here recently. Rey Mysterio had a pretty good roll up. I forgot who else had another good one. I think it might have been Natalya. I don't really know exactly, but I know that they were actually getting creative, and they weren't just having a roll up, just somebody roll up to do it. It was actually a creative way to do it, and this was like the complete opposite. Like whenever Matt and other people say like roll ups suck and like they're completely overused, because everybody knows like a roll up is necessary sometimes. You have to do it, but with how overused they're doing it, this version of it was just the absolute worst. Like somebody hearing the music, turning their head, and just. Are you kidding me? You get rolled up by Dominic? I don't know. I was not a fan of this match at all. Just really the way it ended. I really wasn't a fan of the whole 2-on-1 thing. I just feel like this was a pretty good episode of SmackDown. I'm glad that they kept the tag team theme. They ended the show with that. But still, it was just... I feel like they dropped the ball there. I don't know. I don't want to see that again. Just Dominic get a roll-up win like that by himself going 2-on-1. It's pretty obvious. Dominic can barely win a 1-on-1 match. If you're actually watching... Chad Gable is somebody he always does well against. But like a guy like specifically Robert Roode, I commented last week and said how it's obvious from your eye test. Robert Roode will manhandle Dominic. So the fact that he can beat Robert Roode as well as Dolph Ziggler at the same time, and them just get distracted by simply Rey Mysterio coming out limping to the ring. Like, you just beat the hell out of this guy. Let him come out. Like, come on, what are you scared of? I don't know. It was just one of those things that kind of left a bad taste in your mouth. After a pretty good episode of SmackDown, I was like, oh man, come on. That's how you end the show. And I knew I was going to have to say something about it. But as you guys know, the Usos come out after this, and they basically get in their face and say, yeah, we have a tag team match against you guys next week. Let's do this. Roman Reigns is shown backstage with Paul Heyman 2 inches away from his face, staring at him like usual. And he was just basically, frustrated. He's pissed off. He does not like seeing this. And I'm liking this little layer that they're adding to this. Seeing Roman Reigns kind of, get pissed off, and not in a, like, he's getting pissed off in a, this is not going to work out well for me. Like, I'm going to lose my right-hand man here. That's almost what it seems like. And I don't know. I mean, this is kind of, they're taking the slow burn to this. I love it. I like that they're taking the slow approach. Jimmy Uso is going to get back in the ring next week. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Him and his brother, they actually had a tag team match tonight, like we said, to open the show. So it was nice to see the Usos back tagging together, and I'm excited to see him do it next week. I don't know if they're going to win the championships. That's going to be juicy. That's when things get interesting. They actually have some gold on the line. And I don't know. I mean, I think Jey Uso is going to be the star of that match. Just not necessarily like his in-ring performance, but just what's he going to do? His decision-making. How is he going to approach that? Where is his loyalty? Where is that going to lie? I think that's going to be a question that we're going to get answered. But nonetheless, that is the SmackDown review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit different than what I normally do and what I did last week. I kind of just wanted to try out this version, but like I said, we're going to figure out a formula that sticks. We're going to get back to on that consistent weekly schedule, and I'm looking forward to doing that. Definitely want to thank you guys all for listening to this podcast. If you're a first-time listener, thank you for choosing this podcast. I definitely appreciate that. And if you're a regular listener, thank you for making this part of your weekly routine. I mean, it definitely means a lot to me, and I hope you will continue to do so. And I hope you will continue to check out all the other shows that we have on this network, because it's your one-stop shop, no matter what you want. AEW, NXT, Raw, SmackDown, nostalgia, a rivalry segment or a rivalry episode, even a mailbag episode where you yourself can get your voice heard on this show. I mean, it's everything you could possibly want. Also, there's a Patreon. You don't like the ads? Well, that's up to you. $1 a month, you can get rid of the ads. You better do that. Otherwise, you can't complain. I mean, that's just $1 a month is definitely worth it. I promise you. I listen to this podcast with ads for literally up until like a couple months ago, maybe. I don't know exactly when I became a Patreon, but that just tells you. I mean, I literally have a show on this network, and I am a Patreon because it's that worth it. I promise you. So if you haven't done that already, definitely go do that. And if you enjoyed it, why don't you tell a friend? I mean, tell somebody, hey, you don't watch wrestling as much? Well, I mean, and that's what I've done before. I have friends who don't watch wrestling religiously like I do. I literally tell them, hey, well, I mean, if you're still into it, but you don't have the time to watch it, listen to this podcast. There's literally a show for every single, or there's a podcast for every single show. So you can stay caught up on a weekly basis. I mean, I tell people that all the time. So, like I said, I want to thank you guys all for listening. It definitely means a lot. I hope you will continue to do so. And I hope you all have a great Memorial Day weekend. That's where I'm finally enjoying a full weekend. So I'm looking forward to, being lazy and just relaxing. So definitely going to enjoy that. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams. And I will talk to you guys next week.